Gadgetzan, the city of opportunity.
Hey guys, MaSsan here. The main Streets of Gadgetzan, the Hearthstone, is revealed at BlizzCon. Finally, we've been expecting a new expansion to come, new meta to come, Shaman to be giveaway finally, I think. Hopefully, new good priest cards will come here. I'm gonna be reviewing cards that were revealed in BlizzCon. Anyways, let's get into it. New cards. So far, 31 cards have been revealed out of 132. So 132 cards will be revealed. Launches early December. I'm a little bit disappointed on the launch date, or at least the plan, because I looked at some of these cards, and it looks like some of these cards are designed so that they will be played without the Grand Tournament. But then the Grand Tournament is not going away until February next year, I think. Unless they make that happen earlier, but then until then, some of these cards will be really OP in my opinion, so we'll see how that goes. So at first and the most, the Druid card, the Kuhn the Forgotten King. Choose one, gain 10 mana, or refresh from mana crystals. This is one of the cards that will be really OP with the Grand Tournament, because you can play this card with the Aviana. Obviously, Aviana costs 9 mana, and then you play this card for 1 mana, and then you gain all mana back, 10 mana back to your hand, because you play this card to refresh your mana crystals, unless you innervate it out, but you get full mana back. And then you can play whatever minion for 1 mana each you had. So in one turn, potentially you can drop 10 mana legends. Well, 10 mana legend, because you have to play a Vienna. But your board will be filled entirely. Holy crap, this card can be amazing for the Remtries, but I don't know if this card is actually good enough in actual paper, because the meta says it's aggro right now, and this card does not look that amazing for defensive card. It's pretty good for sure, and you can just kind of have this card anywhere in any deck, but it doesn't synergize with anything else, and it will be just 3/7/7 after turn 10, which is as good as like Deathwing, I suppose, but weaker. But even if, despite that, it's a really good card. I'm excited to see this card in action. It'll be played in tournaments for sure. Next, Lunar Visions. Draw 2 cards, minion drawn 2. What? Okay. The Lunar Visions. Draw 2 cards, minions drawn cost 2 less. So this is a Druid card once again. And I actually don't like this card. I don't think this card is that amazing, because in current meta at least, and even in late meta, early meta, regardless of meta, because every Druid is expected to play Innervate, Wrath, Swipe, and the Wild Growth. By default, the third of the cards will be not minions, and only minions drawn cost 2 or less. So drawing 2 cards is gonna be 2 mana extra. So you need to have at least 1 minion, and then it's event. But considering this is a 5 mana cost compared to Nourish, I don't think it's as good, since it only draws 2. So I think this card, if you have a minion-based deck and you have a more than half chance you draw, you have to have a minimum half chance to draw into minions with this. 15 minions. Hang on, let me think about it. You know what? I take it back. The Lunar Visions is actually not bad, not to think about it, because if you draw 2 cards and card itself costs 1 mana, it should be 3 mana cost. But then, as long as you draw at least 1 minion, that's gonna 2 less. The mana, as long as you draw 1 minion with this card, it pays itself off, and if you get 2 minions, then it's good. There are a few decks, the Druids are mainly, with the exception of Malgus Druid and the Yogg-Saron Druid, that are pretty strong in current meta, has been minion-based class. At least half of the minions cards are in Druid are usually minions, so there's a pretty good chance you will actually get minion with this card, especially since you'll be drawing or mulliganing for Wild Growth, Innervate, and possibly Nourish, Wrath. You're mainly drawing for spells as Druid early game, so chances are that you will have a minions late game more so than spells. So I like this card actually. This will be like new Nourish, potentially better. Next, Filter Power. Get an empty crystal for each friendly minion. This is one of the things that Blizzards are not so clear about. Gain an empty mana crystal for each friendly minion. Does that mean if you have 10 mana and you have 7 minions on board and you play this card, you get 7 card draws because excessive mana? Or not? Because there are abilities that gives you empty mana crystals, but If you play the Mana Keeper, you don't get the excessive mana. If this card actually gives you excess mana, this card will be also played as a draw cards late game. It'll be amazing, super overpowered. But I don't know how that's going to work out, since that's one of the things that Blizzard actually did not describe especially. You can kind of understand the Mana Keeper does not give you excessive mana because it's a minion, but this is a spell. So is that actually going to give us 7 to 4. If you play this card with a Violent Teacher, it's going to be one of the most OP cards, since the Violent Teacher spawns a 1/1 minion first, and then you get the filtered power. And if you have cards like Wrath, that means turn 4 you play a Violent Teacher, turn 5 you play Wrath and filtered power, you get 3 empty mana crystals. This is one of the best ramping cards ever in the history of Hearthstone. Potentially. But then again, like I said, if it does not draw, you're gonna need a lot of extra mana to play all the cards, and a lot of token-based deck does not actually have that much mana in your hand, because cards are usually cheap, if that makes sense. Next, Lotus Agent. To Battlecry, discover a Druid, Rogue, or Shaman card. Oh, I don't know if you get to choose the Druid, Rogue, or Shaman first, or because it says it discover a Druid, Rogue, or Shaman card. It doesn't say and or anywhere, right? So they could, there are two ways to do this. One, you could choose class first, and then you get to choose those cards. Another way to do it is that you just get a pull of Rogue, Druid, or Shaman cards, and you just choose between, which I think is a letter will be more likely. It's a 5 mana, 5/3. If it's the letter, it's not gonna be as good. But if it's before, if you can actually pick class before, this card will be also one of the best card. The Druid, Rogue, or Shaman cards you can get. Really good Shaman cards. They're really good removals in Rogue or Shaman, depends on your deck. But otherwise, it'll be just like the Mage card, the 5 mana, 6/3. Discover random spell, but it's still not played because it's not fast enough in current meta. And the new meta, I don't know how fast it's gonna be, because the card was the Ethereal was actually, is that Ethereal? Ethereal was actually card that was one of the cards that was mostly played in the old meta before Old Gods. Next, Mark of the Lotus, give your minions +1/+1. Oh boy, Powered Wild, here we go. This card is just a better and improved version of Power Wild that you cannot play 3/2 for, but for Token Druid with a Violent Teacher, it doesn't really matter. You rarely get to play 3/2 anyways unless you're going against a Zoo. The Token Druid, it's already kind of strong enough to compete with the Malygos version of the Druid. It's not as strong because it does not have as finish move. But with cards like this, Filtered Power, with cards like Mark of Lotus, with cards like King of Forgotten Kings, I think the new theme for Druid is the gang up, basically. I think the Druid will be once again one of the very strong class if it wasn't before. Seeing these cards, unless we have yet to see the other cards that were released. There are a lot of cards to review. We'll see. The Hunter cards. So Piranha Launcher. Whenever you hear a text someone 1/1 Piranha, 2/4, 5 mana weapon. Since the Piranha is this beast, it's kind of weird fish and a beast at the same time. I don't know how that works. Maybe shark, because the sharks are not fish, right? Ha! Or whales are not. Whatever. Alright, fine. The Piranha is a beast 1/1 without charge, so it's not as good, actually. It's like if you get to actually play it for 4 turns, but the Hunter nowadays is all about the tempo. And this card is the control card, so it'll be kind of awkward. If you get all the values, then it's okay. But we're gonna attack 4 times as a Hunter with only 2 damage. It's like Doomhammer, but if Doomhammer only attacks once, even if it has 8 charge, it'll be kind of bad, right? It's just like that. I'll rate this card 2 out of 5, whereas I'm rating Kun, the Forgotten King, 5 out of 5, Lunar Division, 4 out of 5, Pilfered Power, 4 out of 5, Lotus Agent, 3 out of 5, Mark of Lotus, probably 4 out of 5 as well, for with one specific theme, that is Token Druid. Grim Street Informant, the Battlecry, discover a Hunter, Paladin, or Warrior card. This card is... oh man, this card is really iffy. 2 mana 1/1. There is already 1 mana 1/1 for some classes like Rogue that steals a card from your opponent. It's better because it's discovered, but then you're paying extra mana. People already don't use the cards that discover and gives a 1/1 +1/+1. That's the Paladin card, but it's a little different. But it's kind of that. I'll still rate this card 2 out of 5. I don't think I'll be playing this card over a draw card, Because Discover, in my opinion, is not as good as a draw. You only want to play this extra if your deck does not have enough of the theme. Let's say you have a spell-based deck and you're looking for some minions, then you play Discover. And it's still spell, so you can still play Arcane Giants. Not bad deal. But then this one is not really spell. I don't know how it's going to fit into the theme usually, and it's a little expensive in my opinion. I'd rather play the draw. But maybe there's a discovered theme synergy going on. We'll see about that, because there's still 90 cards that to be revealed after this one. Alright, so next card, Karzakas. If your deck has no duplicate or custom spell, this is a little confusing. You have to play the card probably or get to see the video first. And they're basically, you create a custom spell that has 2 custom effects out of a 9. Or is there more actually? There's probably more actually. So you can choose once you can play this card, you play it, and then you choose between 1, 5, 10 mana cost card. I checked out the 10 mana costing custom spell. It's really, really OP, basically Yogg-Saron. The 10 mana spell is basically new Yogg-Saron. You can create a custom effect so that it deals 6 AoE damage. Basically kills everything on board, and summon 3 minions die in this game. Basically, it fills the board and board clears without overload. So this card, it has so much potential, but only can be played just like Reno if your deck has no duplicates, and you can still play this card with Reno until new expansion or until new era of the Hearthstone comes, which is the reason I think this card might be a little too overpowered, because the current... Alright, there are a few actually Reno decks existing already that are pretty strong, and if you add this, that actually... I think the power balance might go over the top, but then there are new cards actually coming out, so that will balance each other, hopefully. Regardless, the 4 mana 3/3, it's the stat-wise it's not the most amazing thing. In fact, it's pretty bad, because 3/3 you're expecting 3 mana or even 2.5 mana more likely. But the battle cry is amazing. Maniac Soulcaster. Battle cry, choose 1 friendly minion. Shuffle copy of an interior deck. Likely you're gonna be choosing like one of the small minions, so because the big minions, especially for mages, don't usually survive, like the Antonidas, Emperor Darusan. None of big minions at the moment in current meta does not survive into next turns, unless they play like Sylvanas or Cairn, but then those are kind of too slow to be shuffled back into your deck. I think this card actually can be played in really yellow decks that draws really fast and a lot, like Tempo Mage deck. Could be cool with this. Okay, I'm excited to see it. Next, Cabal Courier, or... Yes, Cabal Courier. Battle card, discover Mage, Priest, or Warlock card. Again, it's a little more expensive than I would like to see. Mage, Priest, or Warlock card. It's a good discovered card, but then it's costing 2 mana, basically. It's 2 mana, 2/2, even that's not really played. You expect 2 mana, 2/2, and custom effect. And this custom effect is actually better than just regular discover, but it's costing extra mana, so... I don't think it's worth it for now. We'll see. 2 out of 5. Kazakost, 5 out of 5 until Jackson goes away. Maniac Soulcaster, 3 to 4 out of 5, depends on deck archetype. Next, Paladin. Wicker Flame, Burn Bristol. Divine Shield Taunt, damage dealt by this minion also heals your hero. By the way, with this, even if your opponent attacks into this, with the hero it still heals you. So this card is kind of saying, yo, I'm gonna heal you for 4. This card is 3 mana, 2/2, Divine Shield, Taunt, and it heals you for 4, which is a lot of value together for 3 melee mana. Basically, you get extra 1 mana, 4 heal, and you can buff this card, but at the moment I'm not expecting. Let's just get the card itself. Look at the Shielded Minibot. Everyone played it. It was really good, and despite the heal is most prominent aspects of Paladin, everyone kind of... Like, a lot of Paladin cards already has a heal. But then Paladin right now is either super early game or super late game. This is one of the cards that will actually put Paladin back to the mid-range game if I can see a few more of these cards. Because I remember mid-range Dragon Pally could be a thing if the deck, maximum deck, if the maximum cards you can have in the deck is 36, Dragon Pally would be one of the strongest deck right now. But because there isn't enough card slot for the mid-range Pally deck, because of all, you have to fit in all the heals and mid-range cards to make it work. It doesn't really work out. Maybe this card will be just like that. It's kind of awkward. If there's an extra slot, I will definitely put it in, but then by itself, it's not as good. But then it's a legend, so you can only have one, so maybe it fits in, kind of. We'll see. The card, Small Time Recruits. This card, draw 3 1-cost minions from your deck. Basically, it's a Divine Favor without any backfires. It costs same exact, and Divine Favor, in my opinion, usually draws 3. And against control cards, it's better. Against the mid-range or early game, it's worse. But this card, because if you're playing aggro Paladin with a bunch of 1s drops and 2 drops and 3 drops, this card is an amazing card. I think I'll definitely play it in aggro Paladin. Although I don't know how powerful aggro Paladin would be after seeing a lot of mid-range cards that I'm saying right now. Because mid-range decks historically beats out the aggro deck, and control decks historically beats out the control decks historically beats out the mid-range, and you know, aggro decks kind of beats the control, which is the reason we are seeing kind of disparity of all aggro, since control decks lose to it, and there is no good mid-range deck right now. Good mid-range decks used to exist with a lot of death rolls, but that's gone, so there's no amazing good line of mid-range cards, which we need to see right now. And this could be a filler for that section on aggro decks. Next, Mistreated Marshal. Death Rattle, if this minion has 2 or more attack, draw a card. What? I wonder if you can actually buff the card temporarily and then still, like, let's say you have Abusive Sturgeon, can you draw with it? I don't know. We'll have to test it. Probably yes, the answer, I think, because it should take into account of all the buff effects also. And it also has 1 attack, which means this could go into a Hobgoblin deck along with this Grimstreet Informant. So maybe we'll see the Hobgoblin Paladin. Abusive Surgeon also has now 1 attack. So a lot of these aggro aspected cards now have 1 attack because of nerfs. But then Hobgoblin is coming back, guys. Maybe we'll see. Cancer Paladin coming back. But it's gonna all have 1 damage and Hobgoblin on top. Man, I'm excited to see those. I can totally see that, actually. Wow. The Getaway Kyoto, this card, whenever a friendly minion dies, return it to your hand. This kind of cards, in my opinion, it's like Redemption. You need the filler to be played, and Mistress Challenger as well as Redemption Avenge was good, like, filler. But then Redemption is not being played right now. Everyone should be playing Redemption. If you want to play this card, I think you'd rather play Redemption, right? Because it does the same exact thing, except that Redemption just puts it back on the board for 1 health. Unless the card itself has a battle cry, so you could play on a different card. But that's about it. You still have to pay exact same mana again to play the card, so I don't think that it's just a worse version of a Redemption that can be conditionally better. And not many people are already playing Redemption, so I don't think this card is going to be good. Priest. The Dragon Fire Potion. Deal 5 damage to all minions except dragons. What? The Dragon Priest, they're really pushing it hardcore, man. Dragon Priests are already pretty strong. One of the more prominent archetype of priest decks. Although the priest itself is not so good. This card, I don't know if I like this, because the dragon decks are everywhere right now. At least it used to be. Like, Dragon Warrior used to be a thing. The Dragon Walk still is a thing. Kind of, you can get Legend with it, it's good enough. So this card, if your opponent is also Dragon deck, you're kind of screwed, so I don't like this type of card where, hey, you counter this deck, and if you don't counter this deck, you're whereas this one says, hey, you're countering everything but this deck, and if your opponent is playing this deck, you're I don't like those conditional cards that just grant massive advantage to 1 or 2 specific class or cards. It's like, hey, play this card, remove armor. Remove armor. That will destroy warriors, right? I feel like it's one of those cards, but then if you have that card against non-warriors, it's pretty useless, right? Unless against Druid maybe also. But I see it as one of those. I'm not as excited to see this type of cards. Although it probably is good for tournament scene, because there can be mind games. If they allow actually the side-stepping few extra cards, bring it as a side and it can sub in, sub out, then it'll be actually really healthy, but otherwise no. Draconic Operative. Battlecry if you're holding a dragon, discover card in your opponent deck. Whew! You know, this is a better version of Dust Still. 5 mana, 5/6 is pretty good, and it gives you, it's a card refiller. And I talked about this before, but the getting your opponent cards, is actually good. Like, it's your opponent cards usually counter itself. Like, Rogue is weak versus Rogue removals, Priests are weak versus Priest removals, Warriors are weak versus Warrior removals. Think of Execute kills Control Warrior, the Hellfire and Shadow Flame kills a Zoo. The Rogue is good mid-range, so V-Strike kind of kills all the mid-range cards. Same goes for Shadow Strike. It's just like that. So that could be one of the actually better mid-range cards out there. It's actually one of the highest rated. It will be highest rated, the mid-range cards. Although, like I said, I don't know if the mid-range cards are going to come back yet, because meta right now says all aggro. And I have yet to see any like mid-range cards that kills aggro cards yet. That's one thing I have yet to see. Like for mid-range decks to beat aggro deck in current meta, especially with the card draws like this, mid-range cards needs to kill and swap out. Like it needs to kill 1 or 2 aggro cards, and this card is kind of control more so than mid-range. It's in mid-range area, but it's more towards a control than aggro, because it just adds the cards to your hand that you still have to pay mana to play a card. So this card is like it has 5 mana, but then you can still get extra cards like that worth another 3 or 4. Pin size potion. Give all minions 3 attack, -3 attack this turn only. Holy, what? What's the point of that? Oh, the combo! The horror! The Shadow Ward horror! Oh! Wow. Okay, Dragon Priest. Pin size potion, give all enemy minions -3 attack this turn only. All enemy minions, not yours. So, Shadow Ward Horror is gonna clear everything up to 5 attack minions. It's like Equality Consecrate, and Dragon Priest usually have decent number of minions early on. It usually is the deck that takes actually early game, but does not have a strong enough late game most of the time. Despite all the extra cards you get, extra dragons, it actually lacks the late game power, and that's gonna be a filler. Like now, Priestess just operate just like the Control Pally used to be, potentially with the higher late game potential. Except that it's not gonna ramp as fast because the Tyrant's not there, obviously. But then it can survive longer, so it may not need that. This could be actually the game flipper for game changer for Priest. We'll see. Depends on really depends on though, because Equality Consecrate, Equality Promiser combo did bring massive power to Paladin, but then not many people still play Paladin. So Paladin was always one of the most potential cards, potential class, but never the strongest. Maybe we'll put Priest in that section with a Dragon Priest. Dragon Priest and Death Roll Priest actually was pretty good back in Shade of Noxtramus. So I'm excited. Pushing up meta, gain control of an enemy minion with a 2 or less attack until the end of this turn. Shadow Shadow Menace. Gain control of an enemy minion with 3 or less attack until the end of this turn. Costs 4 mana. This one costs 1 mana, but 2 or less attack. So it's much efficient for smaller minions, so this is gonna help against the aggro decks, but then Priest are already strong against aggro decks. They actually could be making Priest as the aggro deck killer. Right now, Priest still loses to aggro decks like the Shamans, but then with the additions with cards like this, Priest could be just aggro killer. And I actually like that theme. Whenever the meta is really strong, filled with aggro, you play this deck. Just like I used to do with Control Warrior. Control Warrior used to demolish all the aggro decks with like Face Hunters, with charges. These are all conditional deck cards, so I cannot really rate them without seeing synergy. But these are really strong potential synergy cards on meta. If meta works out 5 out of 5, depends on meta. This could be worthless, obviously. If no one plays 2 or less attack, meta is mid-range to control. This card is useless. Right? Even with the pin size potion, it's a 2-card trade, and the minion is less likely to die because it has 2 attack. Next, Rogue Counterfeit Coin. Gain 1 current. What? That's a card? I actually thought about cards like this, man. Counterfeit Coin. Wow. Gain 1 mana crystal this turn only. So, more miracle incoming, guys. Holy crap. More miracle, more auctioneers. I'm sure this is a spell, so. Wow. They're pushing for miracle back again, aren't they? We'll see. I know a guy, discover taunt minion. The warrior, one thing I'm actually worried about the warrior is that they might be kind of removing armor section of the warrior and putting only taunts. Because they removed the GVG gun, so the shield main is gun. The Cthulhu warrior, unless you're playing Cthulhu warrior, there's no 6 mana, gain 5 to 10 armor. Although there's a 5 mana give 4 armor, there's no gain 5 to 10 armor anymore. There's only like gain 3 armor, gain 4 armor, gain... Okay, there's a shield block, but then it costs 3 mana. It's a little expensive, right? Per mana. And warriors actually don't have that much taunt potential. Discover a taunt minion for 1 extra mana. Why don't you just put it a taunt minion, that taunt minion instead of this is one thing I'm worried whenever I see this kind of deck. Because there's always really good taunt cards you can put into the deck. And only benefit you get for paying 1 extra mana is that you get to choose between taunts. And there are not that many taunt minions. There's a possibility that you get screwed up by getting really, really bad taunts, obviously. Although it's less likely with Discovery Effect. I'm not sure how to rate this card. I'm gonna give 3 out of 5. Conditional. And neutral cards. Holy crap, there's only like 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 cards to reveal. Cool. Finja, the Flying Star. Stealth. Whenever this card attacks and kills a minion, summon 2 Morlocks from your deck. What? Summon 2 Morlocks from your deck. I don't know if, no, it doesn't say copy. It says summon 2 Morlocks from your deck. I don't know how to feel about this, man. It costs a lot. Obviously, it's one of the cards that actually one of the problems that Murloc deck have is the draw power or the just get extra things up there, and this could just do that job. Murloc Pally actually could very well use this card since Murloc Pally you want to draw Murlocs early on, and you want to be drawing into the anything can happen later. So this is actually a buff to Murloc Pally, which is already one of the stronger decks out there, but then kind of annoying. So it's not as burst with this deck, more sustainable, I suppose. All right, I like it. I like it. I'm gonna give it a try. I'm gonna try Murloc Pally a go again. A Patches the Pirate. A charge after you play a pirate, summon this minion from your deck. What? I don't know if you want this card even as a pirate warrior. Only deck archetype I can see this deck card being played is pirate warrior. And I guess you can just assume, oh, this card is just free cards and I'm actually shortening the deck. So, and it's a free card, so I might as well play it. But oh my god. Well, it's an interesting little card. Let's just say that. You don't want to draw this card, obviously. You just want to get it for free. And even if you don't get it for free, I don't know, man. It's just 1/1. It's just 1/1. It's a Wisp. It's a Wisp with a charge. Would you play Wisp with a charge, man? I wouldn't. But if you just have one in the deck, and then it just kind of gets spawned automatically, why not? Wind-Up Barglebot. Whenever this attacks minions and survives, draw a card. Oh god, I don't. 2 out of 5. Pass, move on. Fell Orc Soulfiend. At the start of your turn, deal 2 damage to this minion. This card is the aggro killer. I talked about earlier how the mid-range cards needs to have some way to kill aggro, and this is it. You play on turn 3, which is super fast. This, think about Injured Blade Master, 4/7, 3 mana, and a lot of people play that. This card is 3/5 on your turn. And if you can taunt it 3/7 that turn, still. Against aggro deck. This card is amazing against aggro, not so much against control, especially against a warrior because it just gets executed 100%. And yes, I think I'll play this card especially on Priest since you can just heal it back. Wow. Next, the 4 out of 5, hands down. At least, minimum. The next, Big Time Rocketeer. Someone, Battlecry, summon 6/6 Ogre. Can I play this with the Bronzebeard? Yes. Or Purified, yes. Oh my god, the Silence deck is coming back, guys. Purified, the Fell Orc Soulfiend. The big time. I don't know how to read this card. The brand is gonna be useless with this card, obviously. This card has amazing combo with Bronzebeard, but Bronzebeard is going away in a season. But you can still play it for 1 season. I wonder if there is a card that's gonna come out that's gonna say, the battle cry happens twice, or something like that. Like any battle cry synergy card with all these battle cries I'm seeing right now could be amazing. Although I only saw a few that are really strong battle cries. So by itself, it's just like the Ogre 6/7. It's not so good. I wouldn't play it, but with some synergy, this card will make a cut for sure. 3 out of 5 and 4 out of 5 in arena. Second rate Bruiser. Taunt costs 2 less if your opponent has at least 3 minions. Another mid-range. Oh my god, 3 mana for 5 against aggro. Oh, they're buffing aggro and mid-range. I like this. Less control, less one-turn kills. More early game. Wait, no. They're kind of buffing some type of the aggro decks, but they're leaving the rest out. Like all current aggro decks will be still exactly the same power, but then all the new mid-range cards, new mid-range decks will brutalize them, I think. If I can see like 1 or 2 more, I always say this, but if I can see 1 or 2 more of this mid-range card that kills aggro, then goodbye aggro. Aggro is not gonna exist anymore. Aggro will be switched out, swapped out of meta. I like this. I don't like aggro, man. I like to see the good trades, mid-range, control-y, good. It aggro decks in general does not benefit better player necessarily. Although it's hard to play aggro deck, I agree. It's really, believe it or not, it's actually hard to play Zoo deck, but it benefits the smart players less. It benefits the players who can just see the meta and play opponent. Playing itself, the deck skill, playing the deck itself requires less skill. I like that they're trying to move the meta towards mid-range. They're definitely pushing mid-range now. I can totally say it. Until now, I wasn't so sure. Hopefully I will see just 1 more mid-range card that kills aggro, then really, goodbye aggro. Cool. This card also kills a Shaman hardcore, because Shaman really easy to get 3 minions. 4 out of 5. 3 out of 5 in arena, 4 out of 5 in constructed, actually. The Cookie Chemist. Swap the attack and health of a minion. Battlecry. There's already a card that does it. 2 mana, 2/2. And the Battlecry is exactly the same, so you're getting, per mana cost wise, you're getting 2 mana, 2/2, which is not worth it, in my opinion. I don't think that's worth it. I don't think the 2 mana, 2/2 is worth it to be seen as a bonus. If the Battlecry was way too good, overpowered, and you want to get just extra card another 2, then yeah, this card is good. But Crazy Alchemist already does exactly the same thing for less. If this card was a 4 mana, 4/5, it's a little different story, since you get 2 mana, 2/3, which is pretty good. The bonus 2 mana, 2/3 is actually pretty decent. The 2 mana, 2/2 is not worth it in my opinion. Next, the Friendly Bartender. At the end of your turn, restore 1 health to your hero. Another, oh my god, this believe it or not, this is mid-range card. This is a mid-range card in a sense that it counters the aggro, and it still is a 2/3, which means it can trade decently against 1 attack minions. And they have to kill this. It was one of the minions that force the aggro decks. If you play this card early and you're going against an aggro deck, they have to trade instead of you trading them. So this is another aggro killer. Guys, it's decided. Goodbye, Zoo decks. There won't be any aggro in new meta. Cool. Like it, but I'm a little afraid they're kind of super hardcore killing it. The Blizzard is known for just killing a deck archetype or card whenever they try to nerf it. Now they're nerfing aggro. 1 whole health, man, at the end of your turn, which means 1 health per turn you have to kill it. Yes, it's exactly like Zombie Chow. It costs 1 more, obviously. It's not as good as Zombie Chow. Next, Mistress of Mixtures. Death Rattle to restore 4 health to both players. Another card that hardcore kills aggro. This is like the Raven Idol. This card is just like Zombie Chow, but better because it also heals you. This is better than Zombie Chow if against aggro alone, because the aggro decks can kill 2/3, 2/2, doesn't really matter. Alright, back in the days they're used. A lot of people just plays a lot of buff cards with the aggro, like a basic surgeon, so +2 attack. They usually overkill it if they have to kill something by 1. There's no, like, they're not gonna play 0 attack minion and buff it. They're gonna play 1 attack minion and they're gonna buff it 3 attack. 2/3 attack with every save. Or in that sense, this card is conditionally better than Zombie Chow against aggro, but worse against mid-range. So overall, they're nerfing aggro, hands down. There's no doubt in my mind they're nerfing aggro. They're buffing mid-range, and they're buffing specific type of archetype that already existed in this meta. And there was really a lack of mid-range cards so far. There was really good control decks with the old guys. There was really good aggro cards, has been very, very strong. But then there has been sincere lack of good mid-range cards that kills aggro, and considering mid-range kills the aggro, you always historically in card battle, you always want to be just teeny bit ahead of your opponent, just teeny bit stronger than your opponent, teeny bit heavier than your opponent. Then your deck is just better because you play exact same deck, just one of your cards is like a little bit stronger than your opponent, and you just have hands out better odds against the opponent, which is rare to see. And that's why the slightly fast aggro decks slightly fast mid-range decks kills aggro, and the heavy mid-range kills slightly fast mid-range. Control decks kills the slow mid-range, and aggro kills control with the exception of control warrior and charge decks. That was the case. Now it's not anymore. Well, and there was a really lack of good mid-range cards, so aggro prevailed everywhere, and with the exception of, again, control warrior versus charge. And they're finally buffing mid-range, and they're not only buffing, they're just building counter aggro decks. I still kind of want to see aggro deck in the meta. So I don't know if I agree with, hey, play this card to just counter completely kill aggro. I don't know if I agree with that part, but the fact that they're buffing mid-range also means we're going to see more control, we're going to see more of a variety of type of decks. I like it. Thank you, Blizzard. Finally, after 1 full year, I've been asking for 1.5 years, I've been asking to buff mid-range. Mid-range buff is also control because control is mid-range. I've been asking for this for 1.5 years now. They always buff the aggro somehow, and they're finally nerfing it. Whew. Thank you.